Chapter 15. Israel. Though he tried to keep a smile on his face, every day since Tiffany had broken up with him felt like the longest day of his life. He missed greeting her in the morning, he missed having lunch with her, but mostly he missed their evening devotionals. He'd tried to continue them on his own, but every time he sat down to read, tears would blur his vision, and he'd have to settle for praying to God and hoping he would forgive the lapse in reading his word. He didn't see Tiffany during the days at work, but that didn't keep him from thinking about her. And weirdly, though he never would have thought it possible, his daily chats with Sophia felt like the only thing getting him through. Since Monday, when she'd bumped into him in the hall, she'd stopped by for a few minutes on her way to work just to check in on him. Though most of the time it was a simple, "How's it going today?" A few times it had turned into a longer conversation, making him realize that Sophia wasn't just the tag chaser he'd assumed she was originally. She was no Tiffany, but she was capable of offering a listening ear and sympathy. She'd even started dressing more modestly as well. She stood outside the maintenance office, a drink in hand as he approached. "How are you?" He shrugged, unlocking the door and stepping into the quiet office. Dustin had taken to coming in a little later since the birth of his baby, so it was generally just Israel for the first few hours in the morning, unless he was swamped. Then he would call Josh in to help. "About the same as yesterday, I guess." "I'm sorry." She placed the drink on the desk. "I know you said no more free coffees, but I thought you could use one today." "Thanks." He didn't have the energy to fight her, nor did he see the point any longer. She knew how he felt about Tiffany, even though they weren't together any longer, and she'd made no attempts to flirt with him the last few days. "I was thinking," she said, pulling a chair over to sit across from him. "I know Tiffany said no to going to the bash with you, but attendance is encouraged for employees. I don't have a date either, so how about we go together, as friends?" Israel glanced up at her, expecting to see her wink or smile at him like she had before, but she appeared sincere. His initial impression of her was changing with the latest interactions, but he still wasn't sure he would be good company for anyone at the bash. "Thanks, Sophia, but I hadn't really planned on going. From what Chance says, it's supposed to be a festive event, and I certainly don't feel festive right now." "I know, but you also can't stay home for the rest of your life. At some point, you have to get back to living, and this bash might be just the way to do that." She was right. At some point, he would have to get back to living, but he wasn't sure he was ready yet. "I don't know, Sophia. I don't want to give you the wrong idea. I am in no way ready to date again." "And I know that too," she said, placing a hand on his arm. "Honestly, I just think it would be good for you to get out and be surrounded by friends. Sitting at home and wallowing in your misery only makes it worse." He bit the inside of his lip as he thought about it. Every part of him wanted to decline, but he would just be spending another evening at home and miserable, which sounded about as much fun as getting a root canal. He sighed before looking back up at her. "You promise it will be just as friends?" She made the sign of a cross over her chest. "I promise." Then her eyes lit up. "Oh, I'm so glad you said yes. I was not looking forward to going alone, but this will be great." Israel had his doubts that it would be great, but it was for a good cause, and it would get him out of the house. He just hoped he could get through the night without thinking about Tiffany.